Delegate Lingamfelter, great to have you on with us. Why don't we go to your lieutenant governor campaign? There's been a lot of talk that your candidacy, you could actually end up as one of the major power brokers in this thing, because it appears that you've got a litany of strong backing across the state from the people that we've talked to. Can you sum that up for us?
Well, I do think we have strong support. I mean, if you look at the veterans community, I'm a veteran, people care a lot about that. If you look at people who want open government, accountable government, property rights, people are rallying to our cause. It's just very humbling, if you want the truth of it, because, we're up here, we're doing a job. I am essentially doing what I've always done, which is stand for individual liberty, stand for property rights, stand for the Constitution, stand for open government, stand for reduced spending, fiscal responsibility. So none of that's changed. But we are at a time, John, when these are absolutely at the center of the table of people in Virginia. And I am very humbled that we're getting a tremendous following. Sportsmen who, I'm a great advocate for hunting and fishing in Virginia. It's a constitutional right. A lot of people don't realize it's in our Constitution. They are rallying to us as well. So we are very gratified, very humbled. Huge across the board assemblage of people are rallying to the campaign, and we're a little bit overwhelmed, but we're gonna get it done. And particularly in this business you were talking about, which is the sort of very complicated process of recruiting delegates, getting them approved at the local level so that they can attend the convention on May 18th. And vote for us. And if we do it right, John, I think we're going to win this nomination, and then we're going to go on, carry the message I just spoke to all Virginians, and really push a freedom, property rights, constitutionally focused government agenda, one that focuses on families and small businesses and their prosperity, and not the prosperity of growing government.
Delegate Lingamfelter, across that train of thought that you just laid out, you've got a couple of key pieces of legislation that you're backing in the House of Delegates. Tell us about one of them. You're referring to it as the Bonita Bill.
Well, as quickly as I can. In fact, John, you talk about breaking news. You caught me as I'm literally getting ready to walk into the Agriculture Committee hearing this morning to actually fight for the passage of this bill before full ag. It came out of the subcommittee, much to some people's surprise. I was confident we could get out of the subcommittee. Now we have to go and fight to get out of full committee. Essentially what it does it strengthens the right of farmers to farm. Now you would think, good grief, Scott, what do you mean have to strengthen the right of farmers to farm? Well, there's some jurisdictions, quite frankly, that have written these very tight ordinances that basically are directed at these small farm operations. Well, the last time I checked, John, Mason and Jfrs, those guys were farmers, and they kind of thought it was important that farmers ought to have, that crazy notion of freedom. And so what my bill does is bring greater specificity to the definition of an agricultural operation, so we don't have all these localities parachuting in with these strictures and these ridiculous ordinances that basically say you can't even hold a birthday party on your property, because
right.
You're going to violate somebody's ordinance or some nonsense like that. We're also putting a rebuttable presumption in the bill, which is no more than putting the burden of proof on a locality. If they don't think you're farming, they have to prove it. They can't just drag you into court, take you away from your production method, and tie up your money and time to prove that somehow you're not. So we're going to strengthen the hand of farmers in this bill. Huge property rights issue. Huge following on this across the state, and we're going to triumph.
And this stemmed from your last appearance here, where you spoke the very day about Miss Bonita, who was up in Northern Virginia here, who was being penalized for doing that very thing, holding a birthday party on her own farm and raising certain crops that would only be used and products that would only be used there or sold private person to person, correct?
Yeah, imagine that. Just imagine that notion. So, yes, you're right. And Martha has been through a very difficult time, and she's had to actually suspend her activities on the farm until such time she can get from under this swinging sword of Damocles that takes the form of these local ordinances. So we're going to work this hard today, John, and God willing, we'll get it passed and advance the cause of freedom here in Virginia.
Common Sense News Time is 8:22 here on the John Frederick Show. Steve Ray along with John, and we're speaking to Delegate Scott Lingamfelter, who is in the General Assembly building as we speak, ready to head into the Agriculture Committee. And John, he's also got a very interesting piece of legislation that has to do with the U.S. Constitution and the 10th Amendment. Interesting stuff, John.
Delegate Lingamfelter, what is going on with that? I mean, you've got another bill up there trying to crystallize how we're dealing with the 10th Amendment. Can you lay that out for us?
Well, it's a very good question. We have a resolution, not a bill. It's a resolution that will come forward from the General Assembly to the congressional delegation in Washington. And basically it will say this: hands off the 10th Amendment. The founders contemplated that the rights to do some things would be reserved to the states that weren't otherwise handled by the federal government. Yet we have seen the federal government essentially invade with great rapidity into areas that, frankly speaking, should be the prerogative of the states. I mean, in basketball, you got a zone defense and you have a man-to-man defense, okay? If anybody's played basketball, man-to-man is very intensive. And that's how people feel. They feel like the government, the federal government's got somebody covering each one of us, full court press. And so what we're basically saying is back off. Virginia, its governor, its very good governor, its legislature that is a citizens' legislature and is accountable to the people, not some oligarchy in Washington, is working well. We don't need the federal government to come down here and tell us how to eat, how to think. Have you ever noticed that they care more about the fat in your blood than the fat in the budget? I mean, this is the kind of nonsense that we've seen in this sort of postmodern era. And I think what you're seeing is, and it's not Scott Lingamfelter, it's many other people are pushing back. And we're saying enough is enough. You guys get up there, do what you're supposed to according to the Constitution. Let us do what we should do according to the Constitution. And have you noticed, John, that quite frankly, the states with Republican governors and conservative legislators have lower unemployment, have better business opportunities than the states that don't? So you'd figure the federal government would take a lesson to say, why don't we actually follow the example of the states as opposed to continue to parachute in and mandate this, that, and the other thing for them? As Lieutenant Governor, I'm going to fight them back on this, and I'm going to stand firmly in the corner of Virginians.
Is there a particular thing that came down from Washington that was the catalyst for this?
Well, it's been long term. I mean, it goes back to all the mandates with Medicaid. It goes back to all the mandates for highway activities, whether seatbelt laws, you name it. There's always something that they're mandating on us to make us do that we are quite capable of figuring out on our own. But the most recent, quite frankly, it's got a lot of people's attention, is all this executive order talk, these 23 executive orders that the president says he wants to do, basically circumventing the Congress, and tell us how we're going to deal with the Second Amendment. We have very good laws, and I know I'm the chairman of the committee here, very good laws governing the Second Amendment in Virginia. We don't need the federal government coming down here and playing man-to-man defense with us. Look, if you want to fix the problems like Newtown, you have to start fixing families in America. You can't legislate that. But you have to recognize what the problems are. There's some huge mental health issues that have to be addressed. But I would tell you, ownership of firearms by free Americans and Virginians that are not felons, that are responsible citizens, is not a threat to anybody.
Why don't we go to the redistricting bill that passed the Senate? Are you going to vote for that in the House of Delegates?
It remains to be seen from this viewpoint. The Speaker still has to rule on the germaneness of the amendments, and we're waiting on the Speaker to do that. And I suspect that when he does that, it's going to pass if he rules the amendments germane. And it's going to be a tough parliamentary call for him, quite frankly. But he's going through that process right now. I would tell you, had I been in that seat and everybody had been on the floor, I would have cast the tie-breaking vote in favor of the redistricting. Here's why, John. What the Democrats did in gerrymandering Prince William and other jurisdictions in this state to their advantage was, in my view, criminal.
So one of your opponents, former state senator Jean Marie Davis, was on our show last week, and she said the same thing. She said that, she said two things. She would have voted in favor of it, as you said you will, if she was in the state Senate. The other thing she said is point blank. She said, look, Dick Saslaw is a bag of wind, her words, and that he had it coming because they've done this to Republicans when they had the choice. Do you think that was over the top?
Listen, here's how I approach things, John. I think everybody down here, I presume that everybody down here is an adult. And I believe that anything that I advocate for, I can pass based on the merits of what I view. I don't spend a lot of time trying to put name tags on people. What I do is argue passionately from my point of view, and I put it forward, and I prevail. And you can do that without sort of putting a name tag on everybody up here. Look, at the end of the day, I think what the Democrats did with their redistricting bill was flat wrong. Flat wrong. And basically, the right was to correct the lines, okay? What I'm going to resist doing is trying to, the name-calling business doesn't help. Argue the merits of your bill. Argue the merits of your position. And that will help you prevail better than spending time up here sort of casting, aspersions on this group or that. I don't play that game. I haven't played it in 12 years, and I've been a highly successful legislator and a committed and authentic conservative, too.
All right, we're with Delegate Scott Lingamfelter. He is also a candidate for lieutenant governor for the Republican nomination for that. We've got 10 seconds, Delegate. People want information on your candidacy for lieutenant governor. Where do they go? Scott4VA.com. Go sign up to be a delegate, and John will help you work through all that labyrinth of bureaucracy.